who did Australia's first heart transplant or whatever it was. You know, this guy was a pioneer, this doctor. And he said that his dad got cancer. And what he did is, you know, they were trying to play on with all these drugs and do all these things. And what his dad did is went away to a Buddhist monastery for like 3 months and just meditated. And when he came back, he was cured, you know, because this interference or whatever you call it, this pattern, this stress,
and
everything he was stressing about, he just wiped it from his mind and just meditated for 6 months and just lived healthily and cleared himself, you know.
Yeah, you can imagine it.
I don't know what particular cancer it was. It may have been liver cancer or something, but you know, that's because that you know, your entire liver can regenerate in 6 months, you know. So talking about,
find myself going like thinking hard about something and stressing about something. I don't do it too much at the moment. It's pretty all right, you know.
Yeah. No, we're always
and then thinking, oh, stop! Don't give yourself some sort of
disease.
I hate that word, man. I don't even want to say it out. Do you ever find yourself saying that?
Yeah.
Avoid the C word.
Yeah, exactly. Don't even think of it, man. Just move, just push it, just like a force field. Just push it out of there, you know?
You know what I watched last night and the night before? Star Wars 1, or what we would call Star Wars 1 and 2, Empire Strikes Back is number 2.
Yeah.
It still stands firm as a great film. And that was 1977.
Wow. I remember
if you see it now, like, man.
I remember being a kid at that age and being just as blown away by Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
Because that came out and there was these aliens and they fascinated me. There was 5 of them and they were all telepathically joined. So if one of them got injured, they could all feel it, you know, and they all had this weird hand signal. They were like white. They were all like, just like Casper the Friendly Ghost. There was 5 of them. They all had like extra fingers and stuff, but they all connected. Yeah. And that
I remember that
fascinated me. Battlestar Galactica.
What about Buck Rogers?
Yeah, same kind of stuff, man. You know what I mean?
I can barely remember that. But
actually, speaking of all this kind of old creative stuff, I watched Conan the Barbarian when we were over.
Schwarzenegger, yeah,
Schwarzenegger. Yeah. When we were in Vegas, it was on the TV the night of the fight. You know, just before the fight, and I was sitting there. I didn't want to go to anywhere, and I had to take a break, so that was on. Yeah. I was just watching Conan the Barbarian. That was an incredible movie. I mean, the guy was in amazing shape, you know. There's a lot of symbology in that movie because I'm reading a book at the moment. Called Worship of the Serpent, and it's about the history of the world's religions before Catholicism, before Islam, before Judaism, before all of the major religions that we have in the world today. 95% of the world worships serpents. Snake worship was incredibly huge. Even Stonehenge is some form of a monument to snakes and serpents. All around there, all these circular buildings. Even when you look on the medical, you know, like DNA, we spoke about DNA being similar.
The knife and the snake.
Yeah, the knife and the 2 snakes. Yeah. DNA is represented by 2 serpents. And when you have 2 serpents facing each other, which is the logo that reappears constantly throughout Conan the Barbarian, one is supposed to represent good and the other represents evil, you know? So I'm reading this book by a guy called John Bathurstein. It's pretty heavy going. And the guy talks, I wouldn't even say the evidence, it's right in front of your face. You can actually watch YouTube videos where people talk about it. Ophiolatereia is the word. And basically, Ophiolatereia is the study of serpent worship. And this one guy who's on there talking about it was saying basically that somebody said to him, "How comes it's not evidence isn't everywhere today?" And he said, "It is everywhere today. You can go into any church and there are serpents on staffs of like guys like St. Patrick. You go to Egypt and they all had little cobras sticking out of Tutankhamun's head. Even Tutankhamun's mask was like a cobra. Yeah. You know, it's everywhere.
It's so everywhere that you forget.
Yeah, and we go
to even think why it's there.
Well, that's exactly it. And the thing about it is that you go back to Graham Hancock talking about everything getting wiped out 12,000 years ago, and then there are caves where there are serpent imagery and that date back 40,000 years ago. So it's out there, and it's been wiped from our collective
why the
consciousness.
Serpent? Why the snake? What?
Well, even it's in all the legends, even the Garden of Eden. You know what I mean? Even the Garden of Eden, Eve.
Is it our biggest fear? Or put it this way: before lighting, you know.
Yeah.
At my house out there in the valley,
Yeah.
I would walk out there to the shed all the time, blah, blah, blah. One night I shot a torch
Yeah.
and there was a huge snake.
Yeah.
And it put so much fear into me that thing was there. So picture 1,000 years ago when there was no light, there was only torchlight.
Yeah. And you step on a snake.
And like maybe it was your greatest nighttime fear. For everyone. But why would it be in medical? That's the question.
I'll tell you what, I've written an article with my thoughts on it. So if you go to greasybelcher.com, there's an article on there called Guide to the Apocalypse, Eden. I have a website and an alter ego where I write these articles and I put up music that I make and I do a bit of stuff. And I've just got the magazine back. I write for this magazine called Unbelievably Bad. That arrived in the post today with this article in it. And in the article called Guide to the Apocalypse in Eden, I'm talking about serpent worship, and I say, like, in the Bible, they say that Eve was tempted by a serpent and given an apple, forbidden fruit. And I'm saying, well, hold on. I'm also like, again, I don't believe any of the stuff I write. I toy with the idea, like a comedian would play with words to create a joke. I sometimes write articles pretending I'm absolutely intensely believing something. Then at the end, I just put a ha-ha. Mm-hmm. But you thought about it. And that's what I do with pretty much all of my articles. I do a ha-ha. You were thinking about this, or else you were just thinking I'm playing crazy, but I'm not either. I look at belief systems and extreme things that people believe, and then I contextualize that and counterbalance it and put it in there with other references. And I did this with this article about serpent worship, and I'm saying, well, if this story of a serpent is in all of the beginnings of our religions, and it's all in the religions before that were executed and wiped out, what is it? And I'm hypothesizing that there's a guy called David Icke in the UK, and he reckons that we're ruled by people who have got reptilian DNA, because our brain is a multi-layered thing from different stages of evolution. And he's saying that our need for war and aggression comes from our primal urges, that we need to expand beyond and look for a higher purpose for ourselves. And he's basically saying in this thing that the people that we're ruled by, they have to follow their base instincts, which is money and power, to get elected. And then we end up with base instinct rulers who want to go to war. Right. We need to elect people for more, better reasons than empty promises and money. We need to start looking higher. And so he says, if you keep voting for turds, shit's going to keep floating to the top. So I'm basically saying in this article that, okay, let's hypothesize that this is true, that there is something in all this serpent imagery. I start talking about the Adam and Eve legend that's multiple layered across multiple religions. If there is some in it, here's what my thoughts are. And as I said, just go to greasybelcher.com and look up Eden.
I got one for you.
Yeah.
I heard this the other day on Joe Rogan's podcast, right? And I can't stop thinking about it. Think of history as you know it as a human being.
Yeah.
All we give a shit about are the wars.
Yeah, because that's when it all gets rewritten.
Yeah, but isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? That's what our minds think. Exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
For some reason, we hang on to the wars as major landmarks.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what it must be our brains are searching a little bit of, well, that's very important to us. Someone won, someone lost.
Yeah, no,
isn't that crazy, mate? What happened? Oh, yeah, there was this war, Second World, First War. There was that one over there. There was the Mongols. There was this and this and this.
Yeah, the empires. All we care about is which empire came and when. And that's basically it, And it's funny, you talk about how many times history's been erased. That's what ISIS are doing at the moment. These guys are around there blowing up temples like Petra, and even before ISIS, when the invasion of Iraq happened, ancient Sumerian tablets and the invasion of the museum of Iraq, that was destroyed, and American soldiers just stood by and watched it happen.
Yeah.
They were but just these, history is being erased and destroyed, and it's all becoming digitalized. Joe Rogan was talking about that the other day too. He fears for the history of if all books become Kindle, what happens when we switch off the power? Something in print.
Someone will find a primitive. In the future, someone will find a primitive. They didn't even have books.
Yeah.
Or their books ended at a certain period.
Yeah, man. No, it's there's Graham. What's his name? Graham Hancock was talking about a new discovery recently, a place called Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, and he was saying that this is another major find, one of the most important finds, as important as Egypt, and they've only just started unearthing it now, and it's enormous. Incidentally, a lot of people are speculating that the Prime Minister of Turkey is actually heavily involved and probably the secret head of ISIS, which sounds like the craziest thing you've ever heard, right? But you think about it, they shot down a Russian plane that was blowing up ISIS. So if these guys can, and again, ISIS is not a major thing. They could be wiped out in 5 minutes, but they're not being wiped out in 5 minutes because they've been allowed to exist. I mean, how can all the world's superpowers not just go boom? Yeah. It's like Bin Laden. How can you not find that guy? Yeah. They need that out there so they can keep changing the rules and creating reasons to spy on us and observe us.
I can't find it, but
do anything they want. So,
You're right.
And keep spending all this money on weapons, and keep perpetuating endless wars. So. Yeah.
I was just I read this great one and because I was watching Star Wars.
Yeah.
Okay, Luke Skywalker felt. I'm gonna mess this up. Look, the story of Star Wars is actually the story of ISIS. Someone doesn't feel like they belong. Yeah. They join with the
Rebel Alliance?
No, they joined the Rebel Alliance, which is a secret underworld using the Force and all that sort of stuff. To take on. Oh, I'm going to mess it up.
I've got a good Star Wars thing for you. There's a movie that was made in the UK years ago, and it was about dance music and ecstasy.
Yeah.
And
what's it called then?
I'll tell you the story while I'm trying to think of the name of the movie. But
Happy Mondays.
No. This in the movie, these guys are taking ecstasy, and there's one guy that gets really philosophical when he's taking the drug, and they're in. He says here he is talking absolute cod shit to a complete stranger, and he's in a bar and he's talking about Star Wars, and he says the difference between the Emperor and Darth Vader is that who's the actual? No, the Emperor and Yoda. So the Emperor's the bad guy, the head of the baddies. And Yoda, and he says the difference between the Emperor and Yoda is that the Emperor is obsessed with conquering outer space, going to war to conquer outer space, and Yoda just wants to conquer inner space.
Right.
So it's a pretty, it's a pretty
that's true.
funny thing, about Zen,
Yeah.
But it's a good movie. I just can't think of the name of it, but great film, great soundtrack.
Darth Vader had such a cool, outfit. Well, that's the thing about. Yeah, I'm not a Star Wars dude. Don't get me wrong. I don't give a crap about the new movie. To be honest, I hope it's great because
I heard it is, and I've only seen the one with Jar Jar Binks since I was a kid. And I just went, this is a lot of shit.
Well, you know what I was watching last night is that Star Wars. They the late '90s came about and they digitalized it.
Yeah,
they enhanced the sound so when you watch it now, it's like beautiful film. But there are only a couple of sections where they put CGI into it.
Yeah.
And it's crap.
Yeah.
It's like, it's really bad. Like, it's so obvious that these are all of a sudden, some sort of computer generated.
I say that I'm not into Star Wars, but what I am into is watching a lot of people on YouTube that dissect movies and talk about the deeper meanings within them. I watched a great one on Conan the Barbarian the other day, and they were talking about how Conan represents man and the snake worshippers represent the system, and it just went on about how he's put to work pushing this wheel around, which is producing nothing. He's just whipped and made to work his ass off, and then he busts free, and it's all this kind of father-son relationships, which the snake God at the end of the movie tells me he's his father just before he cuts his head off. Same as Star Wars, There's another great one about the movie Space Odyssey, when the guy was saying that, when I was a kid, everybody just said, it's a movie about a spaceship that goes crazy. It's a movie about a spaceship that it's artificial intelligence that becomes self-aware. And then because it's so intelligent, it actually sees that the grander purpose of those in charge is not benevolent. And so it starts to rebel against its owners in a way that the humans on the ship could never do, because they don't realize, that they're being used as well. But the machine has been programmed with pure intellect, and it doesn't have emotions. It just processes information and it goes